Says the Tanya. Okay, so we were saying yesterday that the Yetzer Hara really ultimately wants you to do avodah zarah, chas v'shalom, idolatry, and he does this by inflating your ego, and saying you should do what you want to do, and eventually leads to avodah zarah. Avodah zarah makes it that you don't have to follow God's rules; you can follow a different set of rules and do pick a religion that fits your comfort more, and you're not obligated to anything. You could do whatever you want. And that's the source of avodah zarah. כי עיקר השורש של עבודה זרה הוא מה שנחשב לדבר בפני עצמו נפרד מקדושתו של מקום. And we said yesterday the Sitra Achra is devoid of God's energy. Even this that they suck from the holiness and the life force that Hashem sends to this world, it doesn't become part of it. It just gets a very, very minute amount to keep it alive. But really, it represents a space devoid of Hashem. And that's why avodah zarah, which is believing not in God, is the ultimate sin that the Sitra Achra wants you to do, which means to be a separate entity and separate from Hashem's sacred presence, which is the ego. And this understanding that God exists, but you're separate from Him, is not a complete denial of Hashem. As the Talmud says in Masechet Menachot, they refer to Him as the God of gods. These individuals express a belief that God exists, but they maintain that He does not have direct involvement in their world. Even those who serve avodah zarah, what do they say? They say, yeah, we know there is God. It's just there's intermediaries between us and God. And we have to serve this thing or that thing, and then we get a blessing from God. So they don't deny that there's no God. But they perceive themselves as separate from Hashem, and we need to have an intermediary. That's what the Egel Zahav was. We know that there is Hashem. It's just we need a new intermediary. Moshe died. We need a new intermediary called Egel Zahav Chas Shalom. But this disconnect that they create allows for their own input, since we made this God, so we can tailor it to the way we want it, as opposed to following what Hashem says. We'll just make a God and make an intermediary, and then we'll make our own system, our own program, and do whatever we want. As we know, the Masechet Sanhedrin says the reason they made Egel Zahav is in order they had an intention that this new God, this new intermediary, will make it that arayot are permitted. Because when Shebenu told them that you're not allowed to marry certain relatives, they started crying, like Mara says. So now Erev Rav found a chance to make their own intermediary Egel Zahav. Their whole intention was in order to make it that the arayot, forbidden relationships, were permitted. So you see, the whole root of avodah zarah is to do whatever I want, is in order to feed my ego. Right? So therefore he says, and in this way they separate themselves from God's holiness, and they make themselves look as if they are separate from Him. So idol worship really means turning away from Hashem. And really, idolatry is the service of the self. It's serving what you want to do and pleasing yourself as opposed to pleasing Hashem. So the whole idea of holiness and connecting to Hashem is the opposite, is nullifying yourself, nullifying your ego, being humble, nullifying yourself and doing what Hashem says. And therefore, it's funny, Hashem created us as if we're like separate from Him. We're imperfect, He's perfect. We have to emulate Him, we have to nullify. Hashem created us as something, and we have to make ourselves a nothing again, and make ourselves subsumed into Hashem's holiness. Therefore, the negative forces are called divided mountain peaks, the Zohar says, because they represent division, as opposed to those who are batel to Hashem, nullified to Hashem, connected to Hashem, surrender to Hashem. Those are the holy ones. Before His will, which sustains all things, brings them into existence, something from nothing, and therefore everything is Hashem Echad, Shmo Echad. Everything is really united in Hashem. And the Klippa makes you think as if, no, it's okay. You be separate from Hashem. And what's the ultimate type of talk that leads to avodah zarah? A person says, "Oh, Hashem doesn't make money for me. I make money. I go to work. We didn't. It's not Hashem who fought the war for us. We have missiles and we have tanks and we have soldiers. We won the war. What? You think the war will win by itself? We have." Now you could say you did ishtadut, but Hashem ultimately made you successful. But the ego and the Yetzer Hara wants you to think, no, you don't need Hashem. You can be successful without mitzvot. You can be successful without doing Hashem's will. Because as long as you have yourself, you rely on yourself, that's it. And then you get a rude awakening when Hashem has to ster panim, when Hashem hides his face, and then he says, go figure it out yourself. You can't. You see, you do need me, and therefore Hashem doesn't do that all the time. He doesn't reveal himself all the time or hide himself all the time because he needs to give a test for the entire world. Okay, we're up to chapter 23. So now he says, now we can understand what it means in the Zohar. The Zohar says that the Torah and God and really Israel is all really one. What does that mean? They're all really one. I thought the Torah is one thing and Hashem's another thing and the Jewish people are another thing. What does it mean they're all really one? So he says, B'tikuni Pirshu, the Tikkunei Zohar says that the Ramach Pikudin Inu Ramach Ibarin de Malka. The Tikkunei Zohar says the 248 positive commandments are the 248 organs of the king. Lefisha Mitzvot Pnimiyut Ratzon Elyon Chefzo Amiti. That the mitzvot are the innermost will of Hashem through desire. Which means to say that if you want to go and know Hashem, you got to study the mitzvot. And through the mitzvot, you realize the ultimate will of Hashem, and you learn to think and act and be like Hashem. So it comes out that Hashem wants us, created us to be like Him, and He did this, He told us to do this via the mitzvot. And Hashem says, you don't know, you can't just know me. Hashem, what does Hashem mean? What does it mean to be like Hashem? Hashem is a lot of things. So Hashem says, here, I give you a prescription. Take this prescription, do what it says over here, and you will become like me. You will become close to me and we'll be one. And we'll be united. So that means that Hashem, the Torah, and the Jewish people are really one. Which means that our goal is to be as close to Hashem as possible. And the way we do that is the Torah. The Torah is the instruction and the ideas and the thoughts of Hashem, and through studying that, we'll become more and more like Hashem. So if we give tzedakah, you learn to be merciful like God. You go and you don't look at inappropriate things, you learn to have might and gevura to do the right thing. And every single mitzvah, you learn Torah, you study about every mitzvah. That's why Torah learning is the greatest mitzvah, because then you understand the mitzvah the most, and you'll be able to be more like Hashem, because you understand the meaning behind the mitzvah. So therefore, that's why the 630 mitzvot, there's 613 ways to connect to Hashem. And the mitzvot represents Hashem's will dressed in olam hazeh, because the will of Hashem is a very lofty thing, and how can you connect to it in olam asiyah? So Hashem made it that it gets milubash in a maaseh mitzvah. It gets dressed up in a mitzvah, in a worldly act, and through this we unlock the innerness, which is the spirituality and the understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For the life energy and flow to all the worlds is dependent on mitzvah observance. The more you are like Hashem, so the more you attract this life energy of Hashem into the world, and you have blessing, and you have health and wealth and life, as opposed to if you don't follow the mitzvot, so you're pushing yourself away from being like Hashem, and therefore you're making yourself separate from Hashem. And Hashem says, you're separate from me? Seder, go and figure out how to get life energy without me, because there's no such thing without me that exists. And therefore you'll get very little life energy. You'll make a little bit of money. You'll have a little bit of health. You'll have a lot of health problems. You'll have a little bit of success. It won't be successful. As opposed to if you do the mitzvot, you attract the energy to Hashem, from Hashem. Kenoda, as it knows, as we know from the Zohar, it's known, the Zohar says, whoever connects to Hashem and performs the mitzvot, he upholds the entire world. Because of him, energy comes to this world. And through this, that we do the mitzvot, is a vehicle to become a chariot for Hashem in this world, and we get to have Hashem's will inside of us. So therefore, the mitzvot are not just to do this act because it's a mitzvah. Do this act because it's a mitzvah, for the sake of the unity of Hashem and the Shekhinah. What Shekhinah? Shekhinah is Hashem's presence in this world. I want to make Hashem's presence in this world. I want to become more like Hashem. And therefore, the Shem Yichud Kudsha Beruchu Shchiteh, to make the Shekhinah, Hashem's presence in this world, connected to Hashem, and actually bring it down. So therefore, you do this mitzvah, you say the Shem Yichud before the mitzvah, because you're showing that I just don't do this mitzvah because it's a mitzvah. I want to do this mitzvah because I want to become closer to Hashem and become more like Hashem through this mitzvah. And that's what it means. The mitzvot are referred to as Lichem Nikraim Mevared Malkan Melech Mashal. The mitzvot are referred to metaphorically by the Zohar as organs of the king. Just like the organs of your body are vehicles to express your body, you use your arms, you use your legs to express what's inside your neshama. So to the mitzvot, express Hashem's will and Hashem, who He really is, via the mitzvot. Therefore, that's why a person has to do the mitzvot. Look at this. Hashem, to get to know Hashem, we call the mitzvot Hashem's organs. And we know that the mitzvot, our organs, are corresponding to the mitzvot, right? There's 613 mitzvot, and there's 248 positive, 365 negative, 248 limbs, and 365 sinews, corresponding to the mitzvot. There's our organs, because really these mitzvot corresponding to Kiviyachol Hashem's organs. So you see how it's multi-layered, and you have to realize that all of this is a mashal, for us to realize that the main way to get success and bracha and health and life energy and everything we do is to be able to be more like Hashem via the mitzvot. Baruch Adonai Olam.